Well, all state-level appeals have been exhausted in the case of former KCPD Detective Eric DeValkanaere. This was formalized yesterday. The Missouri Supreme Court formally denied the transfer request. So that means DeValkanaere's case now rests in the hands of Missouri Governor Mike Parson. And, of course, this comes just a few days after the governor commuting the sentence of former Chiefs assistant coach Britt Reed. So there's a lot going on this front. We know the family, of course, has been asking for the governor to commute the sentence of Eric DeValkanaere, and the wife of Eric, Sarah DeValkanaere, is here on KCMO Talk Radio. Sarah, good morning. Thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
Well, good morning, Pete, and thank you so much for taking the time to have me on. I wanted to congratulate you on the birth of your new baby girl as well. So,
do you have any advice as the mother of three?
Oh, geez, yes. Well, 3 is great. Eric always jokes when we had our third kid that we were moving from a man-to-man defense to zone. So, you guys will have some busy years ahead, but it is a wonderful time in your life.
Well, thank you so much. And I have heard that a lot. So I'm already getting a sense, 3 days into how this zone defense is going to play out, and it's going to be difficult.
Yes.
Take me through where you're at right now, where your head is at after this decision yesterday by the Missouri Supreme Court. And, I thought you always knew you would get here. The question was when, and now where do we go moving forward?
Yes. Well, as you stated, the last step in the appeals process was the Missouri Supreme Court. And unfortunately, yesterday it was published on their website that our transfer was denied. I will be completely honest here. It was difficult to hear this because throughout this whole process, you just want so much to believe in that judicial process and that someone eventually is going to do the right thing. For us, in this case, against my husband, that didn't happen. And I feel strongly that they got this wrong from the beginning, from the indictment all the way through the appeals. But the fact is that part is over. That's the reality, and we must move forward. I remember that Governor Parson came on your show and stated that he wanted to wait until the judicial process played out before weighing in. And now that it's done, I am just hoping and praying, like so many others, that he will step in and use the executive power he has as governor to grant Eric the full pardon that I think he rightfully deserves. I looked back at his record while the governor's been in office, and he has granted well over 600 pardons or even commuted sentences. And although I'm not here to talk about those cases or those people, I feel like I am an expert on Eric because I have loved this man for over 25 years. And he's a loyal husband, a wonderful father, a great son, son-in-law, coworker, coach, neighbor. And I know that the governor has received hundreds of detailed letters from people who personally know him that can attest to the kind of human being he is. In addition to, I know that there's been thousands of phone calls and emails and signatures on petitions of people who support Eric and support a pardon from the governor. He has had the backing from the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, who has been wonderful. And sadly, organizations like this are needed in our country now more than ever because this doesn't just happen to Eric. It happens throughout our country, sadly. And I don't know, we're just really hopeful that the governor will do the right thing. I don't think Eric should be serving 1 day in prison for doing his job as he was trained to do. He saved the life of Troy Schramm, another detective. And I think as citizens, we need to really be careful when another detective sees a man speeding and chasing another vehicle throughout our city streets. He was chasing a woman who he had just had a domestic incident with. 2 young kids were in the car. Multiple traffic violations were committed. I would think that we would want officers to go and investigate that kind of behavior. The reality is that kind of behavior is indicative. Those kind of offenses and behavior lends itself to other crimes. That's the reality. And the facts with Mr. Lamb, I think sometimes they like to say, he was just working in his garage on a car. That's asinine. Completely false, not true. The facts were he was in a stolen truck. He has a stolen gun, drugs in his system while driving, on his body. And I just cannot believe that citizens don't want police to investigate these types of crimes in our city. I remember the trial judge stating that the officers were trespassers and had a duty to retreat. And I sat in that courtroom thinking, how is that even possible after you're observed driving that way? To people saying, like, he was only speeding. I would say tell that to Cassie Mulbauer, who lost her husband, who also worked for KCPD, due to someone driving at high rates of speed and not following traffic laws. I just feel like this was a political prosecution by Jean Peters Baker, and I think that we are not safer. Police are now literally afraid to do their jobs in that county, and that's not good for any of us, because where does the majority of the crime happen in the city? Jackson County. The reality is that police are just no longer willing to do proactive policing anymore in that area because of my husband's case. And I don't blame them. They don't want to be next. And I'm here to tell you, I can assure you it's not worth it.
What, where are you at, Sarah? And Sarah DeValkanare is joining us, the wife, of course, of Eric DeValkanare, former KCPD detective. I know there was a period in time where you were hopeful of a commutation, and you just mentioned a full pardon. What has changed in your mind in saying, no, this is pardon worthy, not just commutation worthy?
Well, in my opinion, when we were hopeful that the Supreme Court, we were hopeful they would take the case and, eventually this would be overturned. And if I've learned anything, the judicial process is very, very long. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, if they take the case, we just need to get him home while this plays out. Well, this has now played out, and I feel that Eric deserves a full pardon because I think this was wrong from the beginning. I think he deserves to get back to his family and to resume our life. We have been dealing with this nightmare since he was indicted in June of 2020. Mm-hmm. And, this has been, it's a nightmare. It has affected our family more than I can tell you. And yeah.
Where are you at when it comes to, Sarah, the governor's office? I know the governor's not going to necessarily call you or call anybody and tell people how he's feeling about this and where he's at right now. But do you sit here this morning optimistic, or are you leaning on the side of basically not being sure what might be coming down here over the next several months as the governor wraps up his final year in office?
Well, I am hopeful. And the one thing I really think I'm taking away from me, the one thing I've learned after going through this with Eric, is that who is in office matters. The leaders, not only of our country, but our state, city, and counties matter more than I can tell you. And I know the ones who have publicly done the right thing and backed Eric are the kind of brave leaders that we need in office. So I would say it's important to know who you vote for and what they stand for and what they stand against. And I know who I voted for in 2020 for governor, and that was Mike Parson. And I knew at that time he stood for law and order, among many other things. And I have to just be confident and that he is going to do the right thing now that our appeals are officially done. And I just want to encourage people to join me in calling and writing him so that he knows truly how many Missouri residents want him to act now and to stop waiting. Enough is enough. Eric needs to be home with us.
Do you have, I don't want to put you on the spot, do you have that number by chance? I'm sure you've memorized it, but if not.
Yeah, I do not. I'm so sorry. I have it on, if anyone goes to my Facebook page, I have the link to the form, and the number is on there as well. So.
I will pull that up right when we get done here, Sarah, and
thank you so much.
That way people can make that call and can go out there and have their voices heard. So thank you for what you're doing, Sarah DeValkanaere, and we appreciate you coming on KCMO, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Well, thank you so much, Pete. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You as well. Sarah DeValkanaere on KCMO Talk Radio. All right, here's the number, 573-751-3222. It's 573-751-3222. That is the number for Governor Mike Parson's office as he considers the pardon for former KCPD Detective Eric DeValkanaere.